That's the dream. That's the thing people are seeking. That is a very different dream from I get to screw whoever I want without any consequence and society needs to pay for it. That is not the dream. That was never the Canadian dream. That was never the American dream. That was never the Western dream. And in fact, those two dreams are in direct opposition.
This is kind of cute. I like watching all these right-wing pundits talk about Canada, because I guess that's essentially what I do, right? I'm constantly talking about the U.S. and U.S. politics, and I'm doing it from a Canadian perspective, and it's just neat how they have to reduce everything and put everything into the kind of like this American version. Americans, you're finally taking some notice at Canada. Ben Shapiro is here to tell you about how great Pierre Poilievre is.
Now, over in Canada, Pierre Poilievre, who is going to be the Prime Minister of Canada.
Kudos for being able to pronounce his name. Dave Rubin, not so well. Although, you know what? Dave Rubin, he talks about Pierre, and he effectively just lies and has no idea what the fuck he's talking about, to a degree of which I don't even think he read, like, a memo. Like, I'm assuming you get an email or something when you're part of all these, like, right-wing news networks to be like, we'd like you to speak about how the upcoming Conservative leader of Canada is going to be really good for the MAGA movement or something like that. Talk about how he is for, cutting taxes, small government, axe attacks, that kind of shit. And I think Dave Rubin didn't even look over the notes. He was basically like, yeah, so apparently he's like even more liberal, just slightly less liberal than Trudeau. And he's actually, a kind of a lefty in his own ways. And I'm just like, oh, Jesus, Dave, you didn't read the memo, did you?
He's a tremendous politician, member of the Conservative Party in Canada.
Tremendous.
They're just awaiting a new election. As we discussed yesterday on the program,
He's unfortunately not wrong there. Ben's right. Yeah, he is just in waiting. That part sucks.
the reality is that when it comes to Canada, Justin Trudeau is in almost the single digits in terms of approval rating. He is going to resign at some point. The only question is whether that is going to trigger a new election. Poilievre, if the election were held today, would easily be prime minister, probably with the largest conservative majority of any Western country right now. There's a reason for that. And the reason for that is because he is speaking in precisely these terms, that the dream is family, house, dog, being able to earn.
It's 100% because he talks of dog. It's been one of his cornerstones. He's like, we want to work for hard-working Canadians. We want to axe the tax and want to make sure that every Canadian has dog. Do you want dog? I'm not gonna lie, that actually would work on me. I know it's faux populism, but I mean, who am I to say no? I love dog. I've got dog right beside me. Dave Rubin apparently calls him Pierre Poilievre.
Conservative party leader Pierre Poilievre, who is Poilievre, who I think is really
Poilievre.
Really excellent. And the Conservatives have a strange record in Canada where they just seem to be usually slightly less leftist than the lefties, but Pierre seems to be turning that around.
So I think this has to do with y'all Americans, the fact that your Overton window is just so skewed that when it comes to Canadian or European politics, sometimes it's kind of like, wait, so that the guy's the leader of the Conservative Party. Yes, he is. But he's not like anti-abortion. No, he's not. That's not a very winning policy here. You couldn't run on an anti-abortion ticket. It wouldn't do well. And he doesn't want to completely gut the medical system and make it super hyper privatized. Well, I'm sure he does in theory and will work towards that, but he also could not run on that. No, he's got to keep the communist public healthcare option as something that he does not try to openly destroy. He can do that privately behind the scenes. So he's a communist. No, he's not actually. He's pretty aligned with far right groups. He's put MGTOW hashtags in his things. He's spoken at organizations that do residential school denial. He's associated with the Freedom Convoy, which of course there's overlapping there with the white supremacists and neo-Nazi movements in Canada. He's quite far right, but he loves abortions. I wouldn't say he loves them. I would say that he's just not going to talk about that issue. Because again, it's not a win. Like I guess the whole thing is kind of skewed now. Everything probably sounds a little different.
Here he is talking about how it is that Trudeau has even managed to stay in office this long. Well, I got some good news for you, Pierre, because Jagmeet Singh, who is the head of Canada's new Democratic Party, that's what they call it. He is an absolute leftist lunatic. If you don't know much about him, we should have Jordan Peterson back on to talk about this guy. He is not a fan, to say the least. But what I think is largely happening here is that as America rights the ship, as we return to competency and meritocracy and transparency, that other Western nations that have been under.
Oh my God, the egos. Pierre Poilievre was poised to become the next leader, not to mention win an overwhelming majority, well before the final year of the U.S. election started up its cycle. If we had gotten a vote, if there was a vote of no confidence and an election was triggered in this country, it would have happened well before Donald Trump got elected. This is not because Donald Trump got elected and all of a sudden Canadians are like, ooh, what's going on over there? Oh, that looks neat. Oh, what you got going on over there? Let's do one of those. I'd like a Trump, please. Can we get ourselves a Trump?
Make sure that your kids have more wealth than your parents gave you. Right? These are the dreams. Whether it's the Canadian dream or the American dream, that's the dream. That's the thing people are seeking. That is a very different dream from I get to screw whoever I want without any consequence and society needs to pay for it. That is not the dream. That was never the Canadian dream. That was never the American dream. That was never the Western dream. And in fact, those two dreams are in direct opposition.
This is kind of cute. I like watching all these right-wing pundits talk about Canada, because I guess that's essentially what I do, right? I'm constantly talking about the U.S. and U.S. politics, and I'm doing it from a Canadian perspective, and it's just neat how they have to reduce everything and put everything into the kind of like this American version just to sell it to their audience, right? Like, so we have the American dream, and that is the meritocratic dream, that if you work hard, you play by the rules, you can have dog and house, the good things. And so the Canadian dream is the exact same, except with maple syrup. And so this is a guy, this Pierre dude, he's promising everyone dog and house. And so that's why people are like, yes, and they want that. They want a house and dog, and so they're loving them.
One another. And that is not an argument for government regulation of personal sexual relationships, for example. Maybe it is on a local level, but it is certainly not on a sort of broad level. But as a matter of morality and societal directionality, the direction needs to be directed toward family and away from radical sexual individualism as the ethos. Here's Pierre Poilievre.
Wait, what?
Met another guy at the La Brat Brewery a few days ago, and you can watch the video of me talking with him. He walked up to me and he said, I have 3 jobs and I can't make it. We're renting.
You gotta love the setups. Oh man, politicians, it doesn't matter where they are. It's usually the same thing, right? Like, I can speak common man. So I was hanging out the other day at the Molson Beer Factory, where we had delicious pints of fresh beer made with mountain water. We were enjoying it, talking about good old game of hockey, and we were talking about our favorite teams. And then at a certain point, he brought up how he was having difficulty in his day-to-day. And you know what? I would have cried if that didn't make me homosexual, but I did say that I will do everything in my power to destroy this evil communist, Justin Trudeau, and make sure that he cannot do that to him anymore.
We have no hope. We've given up on ever owning a home. We're renting. We can barely make it. And he said to me, I feel ashamed when I talk to my kids because they ask me why I'm never around and why we can never have a house. And I feel like a failure. But he didn't fail. He has been failed.
That's right.
He has been robbed of the promise of Canada. It was a very simple promise, that if you worked hard, you got a good life.
Pretty much almost verbatim what I was saying. You work hard, you play by the rules. The American dream. I mean, the Canadian dream. It's the same thing. So, but what's going on? It feels like people are working hard. They're working harder than ever, working hard all the time, and they can't make ends meet. It had been years and years of Stephen Harper and him working for Stephen Harper and him basically exacerbating the housing crisis in Canada, them doing everything in their power to be able to continue to abide by the consistent development and privatization of a ton of industries. No one sold off more fucking, in my lifetime anyway, public institutions and public, like railway, for example, publicly owned companies to private corporations and outside investors, while simultaneously ending and eroding the development of public housing, social housing, cooperative housing. That was all being done under Stephen Harper while he was working there. And he was working for him, and he was collecting a fat-ass check, and everything was just great because guess what? The rich were getting richer, and all of a sudden in comes Trudeau, and Trudeau promises that there's going to be a progressive revolution. He's got a cabinet made up of half women, and he's talking about legalizing weed and all this kind of stuff, and he's not going to silence the scientists in the country, and everyone's like, oh, wow, this is neat. But Trudeau also doesn't do the thing that he's supposed to do, which is a vast amount of development and a vast amount of the building of housing so that everyday people can afford it. And you end up with, 9 years later, a housing crisis where no one can afford anything outside of the extreme wealthy. But that also benefits the extreme wealthy. Like, as much as everyone keeps talking about, we need to build more homes, we need to build more homes, we need to build more homes, I don't disagree. We absolutely do. We need to build more homes. What kind of homes are you suggesting we build, though? That's a very key part of this, because you can build tons and tons of apartments. You can build tons and tons of developments. You still need to put in social housing, low-income housing, cooperative housing. These are the ways that the country solved it in the 70s. But if that's not going to be part of your policy, if it's just build more homes, well, cool. We'll have a whole bunch more homes that only rich people or foreign investors can afford. It's going to be an endless cycle. Doesn't sound great. Brian, tell me, thank you for the $5. It's going to be depressing to have Poilievre as PM. It is absolutely going to be depressing.
Now, it wasn't fancy or extravagant.
It's going to be a dark
you got a house
4 to 9 years.
with a yard where you could have kids playing safely. And you could have a nice dog that you could afford to feed along with the kids. And your kids could play safely in the streets. That was the promise. Now, politicians break promises all the time.
But this is like, I know it sounds cartoonish and reductive, but it works. It fucking works. There's a large percentage of the population that is absolutely suffering. I think 1 in 4 Canadians and Canadian families have food insecurity. 1 in 4. And, if you're suffering, if you have difficulty paying bills, if you're worried about where your next paycheck is coming from, if you can't afford a home, if you can't even afford rent, if you're having trouble, paying for basic goods and services, then if you have someone who's coming along being like, you work hard and you should be getting ahead. If you work hard and you play by the rules, you should have dog and home and food for the dog and the home. But you don't, because of that communist asshole Justin Trudeau. And then there's enough people who are going to be like, yeah. I mean, even fucking Ben Shapiro loves this, right? Like, he's doing an entire segment on it.
And you have no obligations in turn. That's not what Poilievre is saying. He is saying that the dream is that if you act responsibly and dutifully, you will get ahead in the West. And that is the dream. And here's the thing. All you have to do is unchain the people. That's all you have to do. All you have to do is encourage them to act in a socially responsible fashion, to actually build families. That all this sort of bizarre anti-woman hatred that you see from a reactionary right online sometimes, that says, well, what do you owe to women? The answer that men owe to women is you owe it to them to be good husbands and good fathers.
That's new. I've never heard Ben call out the manosphere before. Ever. That's got to be the very first time. That's interesting. I wonder where that's going. I don't know if that is because the manosphere is basically dominating their space. Like, I don't know if this is a business thing. Like, right now, a lot of the Daily Wire, the right-wing reactionaries, they're fucking in free fall. Like, people aren't buying what they're selling as much anymore. Younger people, especially young men online, they're buying the manosphere stuff. Like, that's where the money is, and they like following them. I don't know if he's trying to, like, if that's a shots fired moment. I'm not entirely sure. But that is interesting. I haven't seen that before. I know he's a wife guy. No, I know. And he's a family guy. And he's basically, you have to get married because if you get married, and we're talking heterosexual, but nothing else, everything else is sinful. But if you are, man, woman, you get married, both cis, by the way, anything else is sinful. But you get that, you play by the rules, you have jobs, you do everything. Covenant to God has to be a religious marriage. No atheists, sorry. Sinful as well. Lots of sin, lots of temptation in all directions. But avoid the secular flesh, get married religiously, and then, covenant to God, all the good stuff. mainstream religion too. Don't be doing any of that weird shit. I don't want to hear about flying spaghetti monsters. Don't want to, just to stick to, the Catholic, Christian, Jewish, that do not stray. Let's not talk about Muslims. But anyways, then yes, you should be able to work hard, play by the rules, and get things in life that you deserve. And so that's obviously going to be a cornerstone of his tenets. But he was playing fast and loose with fucking Andrew Tate. A lot of them were. Because again, I think they just saw the profitability in it. If you have an opening where it's like, hey, by the way, there's a dude who's exploding online. Really? Yeah, he's super famous. Young people are obsessed with him. He's just viral gold on TikTok. He's considered the most dangerous man on the internet. Well, what's he all about? Couple things. One of the big things is he seems to just really hate women. Yeah, it's not too great. Yeah, the other thing is traditional masculinity. That's basically, he wants to basically tell men to stop being cucks and femboys, soy boys, and trans boys and all this kind of stuff, and turn them into real, strong, powerful, masculine men, dominating men. Okay, we can work with that. That sounds, there's a lot of room here, to wiggle room to kind of, okay, fine, yeah, okay. All right, yeah, so Andrew Tate, I don't agree with everything he says, but I will agree with his idea that traditional masculinity is being attacked, and so maybe, we can work together.
And that is a direct response to the radical insanity of the rad fem left, which suggests, what do women owe to men? They owe it to men to be good wives and good mothers. Okay.
He literally called recreational heterosexual sex gay. He's like, there's this whole thing going online right now between the worst people in the world. Nick Fuentes constantly fighting with Andrew Tate, constantly fighting with just everyone, basically circular firing squad amongst the right. And they sound both so unhappy and unpleasant, which seems weird when you're getting a lot of wins politically, but still that's not enough. And deeply closeted and unable to really process their feelings, because you're seeing all of this shit where Andrew Tate, one of the most miserable human beings to walk the face of the earth, right? Doesn't enjoy sex, doesn't enjoy food, thinks almost as if just doing things for the purposes of pleasure is gay or homosexual. And Nick Fuentes is kind of dabbling in that too, where he's like, if you have sex with your girlfriend but you're not married and it's not to make children, that's gay. It's gay to have sex for the purposes of pleasure. So the only actual heterosexual sex you can have is when you procreate, which I don't know how many kids you have, but that probably won't be too many times in your life. So, I mean, most people now, by their definitions, are having just insane amounts of gay sex. It's very, very confusing.
These things are owed to one another. They're owed to one, and on the basis of those mutual duties, you build a family. On the basis of those families, you build an entire civilization. All that has to be done once you have family structures that are actually intact is let them alone to thrive. Leave them alone. Let them actually do the things that families do. Take care of one another. There's a lot of statistics demonstrating that when men get married, they start to earn more. When they have kids, they start to earn even more. Why? Because they feel a greater duty to go and work, because now they're doing it on behalf of something that matters and is meaningful.
I believe correlation does not equal causation there, Ben. I'm not sure. Maybe the facts don't care about your feelings, but,
at its core, I have nothing against people getting married. I have nothing against people starting a family. I'd love to think that at the heart of all this, he actually does believe in people working together out of a sense of duty, but it's still him promoting individualism, right? He still feels like, and he's still selling the idea, government is the enemy. Big government is the enemy. What they're doing is they're essentially taking all the hard-working man's dollar. They're giving it to people who don't want to work, everyone who's lazy, everyone who's on welfare, etc. It's just being rebranded and repackaged here as like an ode to get married and have a dog. But it would be wonderful if everybody worked together. It'd be wonderful if everybody supported one another, but we are hyper-individualized at this point and hyper-individualized consumers. You can't look at a person like Pierre, and the leader of the Conservative Party in Canada, and try to idolize this guy as like, well, he's got a message for the people. And that message is, if you work hard, you should be able to start a family, white picket fence, have a dog, and all that good stuff. And the obstacle to that is not laziness. The obstacle to that is not people suddenly being like, oh, you know, it's Trudeau. Trudeau's in the way of my ability and my laziness. I don't want to work hard. And because some people don't work hard but others do, well then, you know, the government fills in the gap there. It's a lot more that, you know, if you want to look at hyper concentrations of laziness and hyper concentrations of wealth, there's monstrously huge wealth inequality, and we do need to do a lot of stuff to that. We need to rein that in, and yeah, the Liberals will not do that, and they're feckless in that regard. The NDP proposed a 1%, just 1% tax on the richest Canadians and the richest corporations in order to pay for a lot of things that people needed in society, and that got shut down by both parties, Conservatives and Libs. They don't want to go after big business. They don't want to go after corporations. They don't want to go after the wealthy. They don't want to go after the rich, but they want to keep trying to distract you and telling you everything else is your problem. And it's that there's not enough rugged individualism and not enough hard workers, but the hard workers who do work hard get fucked over by the Trudeau government, so get the Conservative government in power. I mean, the thing about this is Ben selling this to Americans, he is right on one thing, and that is that Pierre is going to win. And so, you know, he's going to sell it as Pierre is going to win because his message is resonating with Canadians in the same way Trump's is resonating with Americans. And that's why the right is winning right now, because people are waking up. They're tired of basically, you know, unorthodox families, homosexuals, people who have kids out of wedlock, people who have polyamorous relationships, people who are pansexual and attracted to, you know, non-binary individuals in addition to other genders and stuff like that. Like, all of this plays into him wanting to have, again, you know, just have the nuclear family, the Christian or Jewish nuclear family in its totality, and that is that, you know, that's why the right is currently doing well, instead of the whole reality of the pendulum swing that's kind of taking place. I bet you already drink coffee and love coffee, but you're probably worried if your coffee has blood in it. Not literal blood, but conflict zone blood. Did you want to buy coffee that is not only going to be delicious, it's going to arrive right on your door, it helps a little bit fund the serfs, and also it's end-to-end Indigenous owned. That's why I partnered with Solstice Coffee, and hey, if you order by going to serfscoffee.com, they even include a free sticker, which is pretty awesome. So there's really no reason to actually not replace the coffee you already drink with delicious ethical coffee. That's why you should check out serfscoffee.com.
Hey, if you'd like to unlock secret bonus episodes as well as uncensored content, go to patreon.com/theserfs. This show is produced by Anna Loves Riley, Arian McCarthy, Cheryl Alvarez, Comrade Junkie, Doug Caddy, Everything Important, Hagbard Celine, Jimmy Sombrero, Voltimondi, Omni, Political Puppy, Preston Kroll, Quiet 185, Riley and Anna, Roller Dragon, Cernicus, Stellar Gwyn, Sebastian Demmel, Travis McClinton, Trincel, Words Greenwood, with additional support coming from all of these amazing human beings right here.